Correspondent, standing by for us in Plateau State, Tijesu Adeoye. Tijesu, you and I spoke earlier. You were at a polling unit. You talked about how there was high voter turnout in that particular polling unit. What more can you tell us at this moment, especially as to where you are?
Well, Precious, it's been a very, very long day from the polling unit. Actually, voting has ended, and collation and sorting and collation has also ended at the various polling units. Right now, we are at the Tudunwada Federal Ward, where polling officers are making their way back to the ward, to submit their election materials, the beavers, and also just to take stock of what happened at their various polling units. We understand that 187 polling units are registered under this ward, and this is the Just North. This ward is actually under the Just North local government, and under the Just North local government, we have 14 wards under the Just North local government, which the Tudunwada Federal Ward is one of them. Like I said, as you can see, some of the polling officers are already making their way back, to the ward, to submit their election materials, and also the first step of collation will begin at this spot before they go back to the state commission, to submit the final result, where the final collation will take place. Of course, as expected, the wave of doubt has begun because some of these voters and maybe the observers are expecting, like INEC promised, that this results will be uploaded in real time. I got approached by one of the voters who came to complain to me and said she has an issue. And I asked, what is the issue? She said she's been checking the IRF and she's yet to see the result of her polling unit. She's seeing other people's results and she has not seen the result of her polling unit. So I had to tell her that the most important thing is the collation that happens right there. That's the collation hall right there, and that is the place you should put your eye on before it actually gets to the IRF. I think INEC needs to do a lot more sensitization on how this IRF works, because of course they have registered in the presidential election that they experienced some glitches which could not actually permit them to upload some of these results in real time. And some of these voters are not really aware of how these things work. So they need to do a lot of more sensitization of the voters to carry them step by step on how this process actually works.
Tijesu, for the person who made that complaint to you, is that the only person who is complaining? Is that just a one-time experience, or just a one-off experience? Are you also getting that same report from some other voters in some other polling units?
No, I just got approached here when she saw us mount her cameras and she saw the news. So she came to report, just to give a report and maybe to register a complaint and maybe like a fault. But I had to clear her and tell her that no, there's no problem at all. Maybe INEC, I was actually maybe speaking on behalf of INEC now. I was like, INEC maybe might be experiencing some glitches which should not count for anything. But the main process, which is the first step of collation from the polling unit, as long as you are registered under this local government, begins at that hall behind me. And after that, they proceed to the INEC state office where the final collation begins. So, of course, I'm sure there may be other voters that might have that concern, but at least from this one that was registered, I had to, give her the right information. And INEC also has to do its job in sensitizing registered voters.
You had to calm her down. That's the first thing to do, because this kind of situation, people can get agitated. But I see that there are a lot of people around you there. Talk to us about who they are. Are they voters who have come to witness the collation there, or are they party agents or INEC officials?
Yes, actually there are 2 polling units in this ward. So some of the people you see around me are actually voters. You see security operatives. Of course, party agents are also on ground. Election observers are also on ground. Every stakeholder that has to do with the electoral process are right here. This is just one ward under Just North local government. I told you there are 187 polling units registered under this particular ward, and under the Just North local government we have 14 wards registered. This same process will be replicated in the other wards around the Just North and also other local government areas when they finish the final collation from the polling units they proceed to the state commission for the final collation.
What we're seeing now is sorting and counting.
Yes, I told you there are 2 polling units. There are 2 polling units right here in the Tudunwada ward, separate from other polling units outside. So I believe some of these polling units that are here are not done with their sorting and counting. Sorting and counting is still going on in some polling units. The polling officers that have returned to this ward are actually done in their polling unit. That's why they have returned here to return their election materials, the beavers, the sensitive and non-sensitive materials, ballot box and ballot papers that were not actually used and they were scrapped. They have to submit all of them back to the ward. But of course, sorting and counting is going on for the polling unit that is actually right here in this ward. But other officials from other polling units are making their way back to the ward to submit their results, to submit the beavers, to submit other sensitive materials, and so that the final collation will begin. But the final collation has not started yet. They are still taking stock of the materials from their polling agents, and also until the sorting and counting actually finishes from all the polling units, of course the collation cannot start. So when all this process is ended, when the final sorting and counting from all the polling booths is ended, of course the collation will start. When the collation finishes from this ward and from other wards as well, they proceed to the state collation center where the final collation will begin, and the results will be announced, and of course the winners will be announced as well.
Thank you so much, Tijesu, for that update. Our correspondent there, Tijesu Adeoye, live for us in Plateau State.